Hey everyone, this is Roman Prokopchuk, and this is the Digital Savage Experience podcast. Today I have with me Wayne McFarland. He is the author of Tales from the Day. Thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome, Roman. Glad to see you're doing well.
I'm glad you jumped on today. So tell me a little bit about your journey. How did you get to where you are today?
Well, we sold our company here a couple of years ago. We had a software company, one of many my wife and I had over our speckled career. And I always loved to read, and I particularly like biographies and memoirs. And so I read a number of memoirs, and Roman, by and large, they really suck. I have found that people who write memoirs generally do two things. They're unrealistic and self-serving, about, life doesn't work like most of them outline that it works. And the second thing that people seem to like to do is to pretend that the arc of their life was somehow planned or logical, when in fact, I think you just stumble from one bog to the next and do the best you can. So I thought, I need to write a memoir, and I included things like pitching a loan shark and blowing town with a monkey and shark fishing in our underwear. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that happens to you. And you can't plan that. You just kind of wander along, and one day you find yourself in your underwear in the ocean fishing for sharks. Don't ask me how it happens.
Yeah, I think those kind of stories are the authentic ones that just happen and you kind of run with them, and the directions you go with them can go one way or another. But it's like you said, things are unplanned and not perfect in life, in terms of where you've been and where you're headed. And kind of the variables are oftentimes chaotic, and things happen, and those
Yeah.
are the kind of things, those interesting points are the differentiations that kind of stand out. But I would agree with you in terms of kind of other memoirs. They're a lot of the time they kind of hype up the person,
Yeah.
oftentimes, and sensationalize the facts a little bit more than they were kind of in real life. So yeah, I think that format is awesome.
Well, there was a humorist who I thought nailed it, who said, memoirs, that's when you don't write about the things you did do, but you write about the things you didn't do. That sounds pretty good, And I thought, yeah, that's pretty much true. So anyway, I figured I'd crank out a few stories from wandering around here and there, and so far so good. So the format of the book is 27 stories, basically, about things we got involved with, like losing 10 grand at the Hollywood sign and running with the Bulls, and just stuff you get involved with. And I think they're not stories aren't worth telling unless at some point during the story, you look around and say, what am I doing here? How did I get here? This is completely insane. And if that element isn't there, I don't think it's a story worth telling.
Yeah, I agree. Some of those the facts are the things that can't be explained or can't be believed, the things that just happen, and like running with the bulls and things of that nature, and some of the things that actually like conquer your fears. So I went like swimming with sharks. I have a fear of heights. I went skydiving. So
Oh,
stories like that kind of connect to also overcoming something, or just spur of the moment things that you didn't think you would be doing.
getting drunk could be part of
Yeah, that oftentimes leads
that.
to some of those stories as well.
You can't fool me, Roman.
So what motivates you to succeed?
I'm sorry?
What motivates you to succeed?
Well, I told people I think it's because I grew up on a small farm. Now, when I grew up on a farm, now there's a lot of labor saving machines and stuff, but it was a lot of backbreaking work and boring beyond belief. And but it wasn't too bad because the farm was next to a huge community of about 600 people. So as a kid, I was just wild to get out, have new experiences, and do stuff. And I pretty much adopted the attitude of you want to go shark fishing? Sure. Why not? What could possibly go wrong with that, right? And it got us involved with all kinds of stuff. So went to California, got involved with the entertainment industry and radio and TV and a bunch of stuff, just surely by being there and always agreeing to do stupid stuff that I hadn't done before. So in terms of what drives anyone to succeed or to do things like what you're doing, is, I think, just a desire to try stuff, to try new stuff. And usually it doesn't work, but sometimes it does. And those are the moments in life. There was a great quote by an American president, Teddy Roosevelt, where he talked about being in the arena and getting all beat up and whatever. But the point he made of it is that if you don't do that, most of the time when you climb down into the arena for the fight, you get beat up. But once in a while you don't. And he pitied the poor souls who knew neither the valley of despair or the top of the mountain. And I kind of agree with that. But to get into either one, you got to be out there. It's like you with your show. I mean, you don't know how people are going to respond. You hope they're going to respond extremely well, but you don't know for sure until you get out there. But from what I hear, they're responding very well. So bravo.
Yeah, and like you said, I think it's obviously taking advantage of the opportunities you're dealt and kind
Yep.
of getting out of your comfort zone, because
Yep.
nothing ever comes in a cycle of a habit or being complacent. It's taking yourself out of that comfort. Being uncomfortable often leads, like you said, to failures, but very often, I mean, people in athletic sports, people that have accomplished a lot have a lot more failures than they do successes, but
Yep.
eventually it leads to a success, and then they take things from those failures, learn from them, and then apply them to obviously reach a goal or ultimately a success.
Yep. And you went skydiving. Well, obviously it worked out okay. But I'd rather run with the bulls than go skydiving. That sounds really quite terrifying to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, like you said, it comes out of a situation. It was more so of a dare, and one of my fears is heights. So every time I fly, which I've flown a lot, around the world, when the plane's about to take off, I see myself crashing before the plane even takes off. So I did it. It was one of those things which was an amazing experience. I have the video of it. I don't know if I would do it again, but I'm still, afraid of heights. But it's one of those things, if I didn't experience, I would never know, what it was like. And it was amazing, even though I'm still kind of afraid of heights as well.
Didn't care you, huh?
No, absolutely not.
Can't imagine why not.
I mean, I had a person kind of attached. It's a tandem jump, basically,
Yeah.
if you don't have a license. And
Yeah.
I can't even imagine jumping on my own, because obviously that altitude goes by really quickly and you have to kind of look at where you're at. And I mean, I would probably get caught up in a situation and not pull the chute in time, which the person had to pull it, because I was just so, like, in awe of everything around me. So it's one of those things where, I learned something from it, and, things may be scary, but taking them and doing something with them, even though you may not conquer that fear, that experience really adds to your life. And obviously, ultimately, life's about experiences.
Yep. I never did that, a tandem jump or any jump, but a tandem jump in particular, because I figured I'd die. My screaming all the way down would distract the, the tandem guy to the point where we'd just auger in.
Yeah, at that point, when I was out of the plane, it was like one of those things, whatever happens, happens, because it's out of my control. So I
Yeah,
kind
you
of
can't
just,
go back.
yeah, I kind of just went with it. And, luckily it turned out favorably. So I'm here.
Yeah. Well, my hat's off to you. That's one. I have not done that, and I do not feel moved to do it, I might add. So
Yeah, I mean, it's not for everyone. Like I said, I did it once. I probably wouldn't do it again, but, I'm glad I did it.
yeah.
So, what's one thing you may have seen as a weakness in yourself in the past that you've turned around and utilized as a strength today?
Well, think that's an interesting question. I would have to say, I think that a couple of times when I passed up on opportunities, I mean, every time you get something new that you can do that you haven't done before, it's like jumping out of that plane. I mean, it's if you don't jump out of the plane, you can't hit the earth at 200 miles an hour. But on the other hand, you won't have the experience of watching that chute open either. So after a couple of times like that, I thought, that's a weakness. If you're lucky enough to get an opportunity to do something, maybe a little wild, but certainly something new, and you don't take it. I read something the other day that I thought was really, I think it was some psychologist or other who stares intently into the screen and tells you about life, But they did make a good point, and that was they'd done a big study of folks who I like to call more mature. And if you start shouting "Okay, Boomer," I'm done here. But anyway, what they said was that they found with older people, they never talked about things they did that they regretted. What they talked about is things they didn't do and they regretted not doing. And I kind of think that's where it's at. That being said, if you have that kind of attitude, you can really get into some bad situations that may not work out so well. But it's kind of my cautionary note to your audience, I guess.
Yeah, you still need some kind of guiding compass in that sense, but like you said, you only regret those things, 10, 20, 30 years down the line that you didn't try or attempt. You
Yep.
rarely regret. I mean, you do sometimes regret some of the things you did, but at least if you took something, even if it was negative, and used it or learned something from it and moved on to utilize it in your future, then it's, all that kind of matters. And like you said, sometimes when an opportunity comes around, obviously it's out of your comfort zone and it may be scary, but taking it at that time because you may not get that opportunity again. I think Richard Branson has like a quote where, if you're offered something, accept it and then learn along the way, or, pick up as fast as possible because that kind of opportunity may not come along in the future.
That's like Billy Joel said, the things I didn't know at first, I learned by doing twice. And you don't know how things are going to go. There was the best example I have is one time for I was married and had a family, for three other young guys, and I decided we were going to go to New Orleans for spring break, for a party. I mean, that was our goal and our motivation, right? I got into a car, and about two nonstop days driving later, or one day, I don't remember, we were driving through Arkansas, and the Klan decided we were down there to help register voters, and they shot us up. So here we went from going to New Orleans to get drunk to getting shot by the Klan and then subsequently thrown into jail in a little town down there. So sometimes you take advantage of an opportunity, it may yield things that you never suspected going in. It's like what you're doing with your broadcast. I suspect it's led to developments that you didn't envision going in, just because of the reach of the kind of media you're involved with. I'm taking a wild guess there, but I bet I'm right.
Yeah, and I think podcasts have the power because it's a platform that's not controlled. There's no gatekeeper. It's not like radio where you're kind of programmed what to say. And ultimately, I switched over to the interview format last March, and that kind of took off the podcast as a result of my grandfather passing the month before. So it's
Oh,
been kind of a coping mechanism. And since I work remotely and obviously I spend a lot of time at home by myself while my wife is at work. So there's a lot of time there to kind of think and my mind wander. So I think it's also been a, healing mechanism in terms of, the conversations that I've had and ultimately sometimes dove into other people's losses and things that they've struggled with and how they coped. So it's been a healing process in that sense. And in turn led to all these, developed relationships of, at this point, about 150 interviews in the year and
wow.
all around the world. So if I never started the podcast or never had it, I wouldn't have made those relationships or connections that can obviously last and, develop into friendships, business relationships, and things of that nature.
Wow. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, that's really interesting. I found that when loss comes tottering down the trail, as it will for all of us, that working and meeting new people and stuff was, for me anyway, sounds like for you too, the best way to try and get over that hump. Maybe it just keeps you from thinking about it. I don't know, but I agree with you. It's better than just sitting in a pile and thinking about it, because that's the road to a place that you may not want to go.
Yeah, I mean, your mind starts wandering, you start thinking, emotions race one way or another.
Yeah,
And I mean, it's been part of actually the grieving process. So obviously, I came to terms with it, and knowing that I would have been sitting around or things of that nature, thinking in the back of my head that I'm a first generation immigrant. So my parents, my grandparents, we came here. I was 5 in 1990. So
good
it
for you.
wouldn't do justice for my grandparents and great grandparents for me not to, do my best or take advantage of, the freedoms that are in the US and the freedom of economy. And still, I think the quote unquote American dream can be reached in different situations in terms of applying yourself. So it wouldn't be fair to my grandfather and obviously people before him if I didn't at least, try my best and kind of give it my all.
But good for you, man. I mean, immigration, most of us here in this country, I'm further removed than you are, but immigrants are the backbone of our nation and our strength, I believe. they're just went all the conservative buyers of my book, probably. But I really believe that. Where are you guys from originally?
Ukraine, Lviv, Ukraine. It's on the
Wow.
west side of Ukraine, probably
Oh,
like
I know
30
where.
miles from the Polish border. It's
Wow.
a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so it's over 750 years old. So,
That's been the site of a lot of trouble, as I don't have to tell you. But my relatives left Scotland, the McFarlands, when the other clans got together and beat the hell out of them because they were all cattle thieves. And they used to call the full moon McFarland's lantern. So now here I am involved with broadcast and writing. So, the genes tell in the end.
yeah, and like you said, I mean the US, there's no other place in terms of kind of that melting pot, and I think everybody brings something to the table of their heritage, who they are, that kind
Yeah.
of those stories in terms of what they've been told and things from their own countries that are incorporated in the culture here. So I think that's an important component as well.
And I got to tell you, Roman, I'm a believer with, I was going to say with no evidence, but there's a lot of historical evidence that the moral arc bends slowly, but it bends, and it's bending in this country. We're going through right now, I think, is an anomaly, a spike, if you will, a kind of a thrashing of a group of people who feel their privilege and their place in society is slowly being eroded. But overall, I'm a believer that the moral arc bends in the right direction, and we'll get through all of this and be in a better place, even though there may not be that much evidence of it right now. But I do believe that.
Yeah, I agree. So, what's one piece of advice you can leave with the audience?
Just, I think, passing along something you said again, or emphasizing it, and that is get out of your comfort zone. And remember the psychologist's study of people over the age of 65, that they never said, not one time did they talk about regretting things they'd done, but they sure talked a lot about regretting the roads they didn't take. And always to bear in mind, when you do something out of your comfort zone, that what starts out to be a road trip may end up with you getting shot. It just comes with part of the part of the landscape.
Yeah, and I also think you're not tested as a person or as a professional, whatever your line of work is, if you don't go through trials. So like a fisherman doesn't necessarily become a good fisherman if he just stays in the harbor the whole time. And the whole saying, iron sharpens iron. You truly figure out who you are, and you truly become kind of battle tested and
Yeah.
hardened for the other things, the trials and tribulations that will come either in your personal life and your professional life, and obviously those overlap as well.
Well, since we have bonded, I will tell you a deep, dark secret of mine that I'm embarrassed to admit to this very day. But hey, you know, when we got shot up down south, I got hit. And here, probably every bad Western you've ever seen, or maybe even military movies, when somebody gets shot, they generally say, "Ah, they got me." And I always thought that that was the stupidest thing. So when I got shot, you know what I said? They got me. And no manly utterance, no Churchillian, you know, there's no more exaltation than to be shot at and missed or lightly hit. There's none of that from me. Just a shout of they got me. I'm embarrassed about it to this day. You know, I guess I'm not up for manly utterances.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Well, obviously, no one expects to get shot, but other things in terms of how people think they'll react in certain situations, and then when they're in the moment, it's totally different. Sometimes it's
Totally.
anticlimactic like that.
Yeah.
So I
So
really
you didn't shout anything like, "Are we going to die now?" when you jumped out of the plane?
No, I have a camera guy jumped with me. I mean, the guy had to practically drag me out of the plane. But I didn't say really anything, and it's just one of those things. You just enjoy the moment. Other people jumped along with me. I know one lady actually had pulled her chute too early because she felt like she couldn't breathe. Oftentimes, you have to kind of keep breathing through your mouth, or you start like panicking and getting an anxiety attack that you can't breathe because obviously you're falling so quickly. But it was one of those
Sounds
things
great.
where, yeah, I mean, I landed wrong too. I kind of landed on my butt instead of on my legs, and that's how you often break your back. But luckily, that didn't happen either.
You're not really enticing me to take a run at that.
I'm just trying to be, honest in terms of what may happen. You have to sign a bunch of waivers,
Yeah.
like 10 pages of waivers before you even do it. And then there's this little 15-minute safety video, which isn't much. And then you kind of just fly up and jump out.
Do they show you any charts about your odds of dying? You know,
No,
dollar
actually,
points.
yeah, at the place I went, George Bush Sr. actually went skydiving for his, like, I don't know, one of the higher birthdays he had.
90th, I think.
Yeah, so that's actually the airfield that I went from.
Well, yeah, the odds are good. If they didn't kill him, they probably weren't going to kill you.
I mean, it
Well,
worked out for me, so I'm here.
well, fantastic. Is this where I give a totally shameless plug for my book?
Well, yeah, so I appreciate you stopping by today. Let the audience know how they can find you and the book and anything else you want to, mention.
Thank you, Roland. Well, the book is Tales from the Day, and by me, Wayne McFarland. If you go to Amazon and type in Tales from the Day and my name, Wayne McFarland, it'll pop right up. And there's a picture of me on the cover, and I look great. So the publisher did that. That's all I can say. And there is a website, www.talesfromtheday.com. And as I say, the book Tales from the Day is on Amazon. A bargain, a true bargain. That's my shameless plug.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate you stopping by today, and thanks again.